Hello, everyone. This is Grace Pedota from the CSE and welcoming you to our weekly Tech Tuesday virtual session. This week, we will be highlighting the best companies from our autumn session. Before I introduce our moderator today, I would like to take a moment to tell you more about CSE TV on YouTube, the Canadian Securities Exchange Forum for conversations with business leaders and entrepreneurs. I will put a link to CSE TV in the chat room, which you can find to the right of your screen. I'm also putting a link to our newest initiative at the CSE called CSE Health Tech Thursdays that will be focused on innovative technologies that are changing the health sector. This Thursday is the first session. And without further ado, I will introduce today's moderator, Mark Francis.
Thank you, Grace, and to everyone online for joining us today. And we are back on our 15 minutes after market close schedule. We're going to stick to that in the future. Next week, on the 8th of December, we'll have companies active in fighting infection. And to finish this Tech Tuesday season, on the 15th of December, Secrets of Santa. Today, we are pleased to have Best of Autumn, 3 of our companies which presented during the autumn. And at the end, after the close, stay with us if you like, as we record their 60-second elevator pitches. You might find that an interesting little event. Our objective in running Tech Tuesdays is twofold. First, to help technology companies with increasing traction to gain relevant visibility. And second, to help capital markets players by introducing interesting companies, focusing on whether the technology will have commercial traction and why, and also providing new knowledge of what is happening in innovation. For you as attendees, we do ask that you share ideas and feedback with our presenters, leads, possibly funding after due diligence, referral of someone with unique applicable expertise, or maybe even a potential strategic relationship. I am now going to ask them, because I neglected during the warm-up before we went live, I'm going to ask each of our presenters to post in the chat board their contact information, preferred, and website and company, of course, as well. My apologies, presenters. With respect, we might refrain from giving management advice unless we are truly experts in the company's particular field, and don't treat our presenting companies simply as marketing targets for services. Some housekeeping matters. You will note a red Reconnect tab at the top of your screen if you lose audio. Just click it and you will be reconnected. In the event there are technical problems, we may hit the restart, in which case there is no action required by you. The system will automatically reconnect everyone. We aim to run 45 minutes to perhaps an hour today with the elevator pitches at the end. The chat board may be utilized to ask serious questions, and please be clear as to whom your question is being addressed. Note our disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt, or to buy or sell stock. CSE and Mark Francis, as session host, i.e. yours truly, make no representation about any of these companies. If you are interested in the investor pitch, please connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Each company will have a presentation, a 7-minute presentation with their PowerPoint. When you see my face appear, the company has 15 seconds to wrap up. After all companies have presented, we will move to Q&A. And I'm afraid once again, you're stuck with yours truly as question moderator. First, before we get to these companies, honorable mention for 3 companies which also were selected for Best of Autumn, but for various reasons were unable to make it. And I'll give you their presentation dates so that you can go back and check out the presentations, if you like, on Tech Tuesday. Energene of Tel Aviv presented September 8th. Plant Genomics with customers including many multinational ag companies, now doing a $200 million IPO on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, TASE, and obviously very busy at the moment. Zayzoon of Calgary, also unable to present today, a referral by TSGI and really killing it in the employer-employee FinServ space, presented September 15th. And Blender of Israel, which has already had a second chance to present on Tech Tuesday, as first presented on September 15th. Blender is a leading light in loan disintermediation. FinTech again. So today we have as presenters Amanda Truscott, CEO and co-founder Rithmik Solutions, nominated by Valhalla Angels, Karen Schuett, CEO and co-founder of Livestock Water Recycling, nominated by AVAC, a boutique venture capital fund, and Mike Williamson, founding partner and CEO of Cascadia Seaweed. Let's start with Amanda. Amanda specializes in technology-related communications. She has designed and developed training and customer onboarding programs for several industrial process software applications. Amanda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Really happy to be back here again with you guys. So at Rithmik Solutions, we increase uptime in mines with analytics that optimize maintenance, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and extend the life of equipment. Pictured with me here are my co-founders, Chris Isfeld and Kevin Urbanski. We started the company in 2018, but the story actually begins about a decade earlier at an industrial process software company called Matricon, where all three of us used to work. Kevin and Chris were two of the key players behind that company's mobile equipment monitor product, MEM for short, and it was one of the earliest data collection and reporting systems for mobile mining equipment. It's now owned by Honeywell and still running in mines all over the world. Through their work with MEM, the guys spent many years traveling to mines all over North and South America. They froze their fingers on shovels in minus 30 degrees Celsius. They got heat stroke in Baghdad, Arizona, and they became intimately familiar with every brand of mobile mining equipment in ways that very few people in the world ever get to become. And there were a lot of challenges with that equipment. So after Matricon, Kevin went to Tech Resources. And while he was there, he saw how many challenges there still were, in spite of the good data that they were getting, because good data isn't enough. Another way to look at it is that it's too much. One haul truck might have around 150 sensors. And if you've got one person keeping track of 50 of those, that's many thousands of data points that they're looking at. And then you have manufacturer alarms that are so frequent, they just become noise. And that's why quite often you'll see situations like an oil pump failure that goes undetected and as a result ends up leading to an engine failure, in which case you're looking at 2 million in lost revenue and downtime and maintenance costs, as opposed to the 30,000 that you would have spent if you had just fixed the oil pump in time. And that's why, even though most of the bigger mining companies are collecting data now, and some of them are even doing some advanced analytics, they're still struggling to make enough sense of that data to prevent catastrophic equipment failures. And that's why they're still spending 20 to 50% of their annual operating budgets on maintenance, and reduced revenue from all that downtime has an even bigger financial impact. So after tech, Kevin took a sabbatical to study artificial intelligence and machine learning. And that's when he understood that these were the methods that could take all of that data that he and Chris had worked so hard to get for the mines and finally turn it into actionable information. So he started Rithmik, and Chris and I jumped on board right away. Chris had been studying AI too, as it turns out, and he was as excited as Kevin to finish what they had started. For my part, I really wanted to build a company where the sort of collaboration that I saw between the two of them was the norm. And we all also really wanted to help the planet, and increasing the efficiency of mobile equipment is actually a huge opportunity for that. According to a study in the Journal of Sustainable Mining, when you increase the reliability of a mining haul truck from 60% to 75%, you decrease its fuel consumption and greenhouse gas emissions by about 15%, which can average around 300,000 liters per truck per year. And we are enabling that with our Asset Health Analyzer, AHA for short. So it uses machine learning to automatically sift through vast amounts of data and draw people's attention to precisely where the issues are. And it does it early enough that mines can take action to prevent small problems from turning into big ones. And it does it in a unique way, because throughout AHA's development, we kept in mind the fact that there is arguably nowhere in the world where deploying new technologies is tougher than it is in a mine. You're dealing with constant topographic changes, extreme high and low temperatures, and in a lot of cases, you're also dealing with some resistance from people when it comes to implementing new technologies. So we're addressing those challenges in a number of ways. Underlying our Asset Health Analyzer is a rapid analytics infrastructure that lets us tune our AI models to a specific environment in just a few days. And the reason we do that is that the same sensor values on the same models of equipment can mean very different things depending on the part of the world you're in, the season it is, and the type of material that you're moving, which means that the kind of cookie cutter approach to artificial intelligence that can work in a fixed plant just doesn't work on mobile mining equipment. And our product takes that into account. As well, something that we have seen a lot of in mines is screen anxiety. People have way too many things to pay attention to. And even though they need better insights, very often the last thing they want is to add yet another tool to the stack of things that they're already using. So we built AHA to work with whatever data the mines are already getting and to feed its insights through the tools they already use. And if they don't have those reporting tools in place, then we feed the insights through Grafana, which is a really flexible and intuitive third-party interface. We've completed successful proofs of concept with multiple brands of mobile equipment using data from several different mines. Just one of many examples of results that we saw involved rod bearing failures on Caterpillar 793Ds. Those were costing a site in British Columbia $4 million a year because the only warning they had been getting were CAT-generated alarms that activated just a few minutes before the failure. And AHA found indicators of those failures 10 hours in advance. At another site, they had Komatsu 930Es that had repeating drive system issues costing them $1.4 million a year because they weren't getting data from the affected subsystem. And AHA found indicators in a different subsystem days in advance. We are now completing real-time on-site implementations of our solution in Canada and Zambia. We're about to launch with Orin, which is a marketplace for mining technologies recommended by Shell and IBM, and we're raising a couple million to accelerate our international commercialization. We're working towards finalizing a lead, and we're offering discounts to investors who come in on a safer convertible note before December 15th. So if anyone wants to have that conversation, please do reach out. Here's my contact info. And if you'd like to talk in more detail about our asset health analyzer, or if you'd like to see a demo, then we're happy to have those conversations as well. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Amanda. You're about 10 seconds early. Well done.
Yes. Okay.
Good. And now Karen Schuett. Karen's multi-patented approach to on-farm manure treatment won her a 2019 Water's Next Award presented at the Canadian Water Summit. She was the recipient of the Thrive Forbes Innovation Icon Award and won the Nutrien Radical Challenge in Saskatoon last fall. Karen was selected to join Google's first Google for Startups Accelerator for Women Founders. Karen, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Only 4% of the world's water is recycled for reuse. And at Livestock Water Recycling, we are changing that statistic by extracting water from a surprising and long overlooked resource, manure lagoons. A farm with 2,000 cows produces as much liquid waste as a city with over 400,000 people. This waste is traditionally stored in massive lagoons like these for eventual land spreading. Can you imagine a city with 400,000 people and no water treatment? We definitely couldn't. Traditional spraying and land spreading activities like these are expensive, costing U.S. dairies approximately $700,000 per year, as well as being environmentally damaging, creating greenhouse gas emissions and runoff into nearby waterways. A lagoon like this is 95% water and only 5% manure. And nature's perfect fertilizer is manure. We are leading the industry, unlocking the valuable organics, nutrients, and clean water trapped in these massive manure lagoons to create value opportunities for the ag industry. Our patented system is installed on farm and receives manure directly from the barns. We process, treat, and digitize the manure, resulting in 75% clean potable water at the farm and a small volume of organics and nutrients that can be used on farm or sold to increase revenue. The systems are manufactured from rugged stainless steel in 5 standard models to address all farm sizes and are manufactured here where I am in Calgary. This fall, we introduced our version 3.0 of our technology platform, Plant, featuring the highest level of automation and digitization on the water treatment market. After hearing our clients talk about their manure management headaches, we developed this digital platform to layer on top of our manure processing systems. We leverage our years of historical manure data to create even more value for our farms. The data is captured by our system sensors and then communicated to our cloud-based analytics module, Manure Rewards, which digitizes the data for easier on-farm and off-farm decision-making. The analytics reporting is able to be viewed and used on our MyPlant app dashboard. Our plant system includes Grow Control, an automated dosing system using sensors that read the manure in real time and then using our algorithms adjust the dosing in response. This reduces operator time by relying on automation to do the work. Since we introduced Grow Control into our market, we have seen our farms save up to 18% on their OPEX. Our automation system is equipped with a machine learning module, Lois, that employs predictive analytics data from sensors from the surrounding environment combined with data from the system. This module was named AgTech Predictive Technology of the Year for 2020. Our path to market includes an initial capital sale to a food or farm facility and then recurring revenue after that. We are currently installed in 9 states and internationally into the Middle East and into the UK this winter. We are expanding rapidly in both segments within North America and internationally using the exact same technology platform. Due to the increased focus on clean water, corporate ESG, and circular economy around the globe, we see massive growth. Our markets include the growing and processing of protein, including dairy, pork, beef farms, and food processing facilities who are looking to reduce contamination in their facility, especially now with the current pandemic. To create value from a water treatment technology is difficult, and we are accessing the market for manure organics by creating valuable off-farm linkages for renewable natural gas pipelines. Also, fertilizer sales and carbon credits make up our value proposition, but the largest growth in North America is through the rapidly expanding renewable gas market. Our systems can be employed in 3 ways on an RNG application. It can be installed at a farm to separate organics to be used as feedstock into digesters. The system can be installed after the digester to treat the digestate liquids and create clean water and fertilizers to be sold into the natural fertilizer market through our partners. Or the system can be used on multiple smaller farms and can create a hub and spoke model, allowing optimized solids levels to increase biogas output at the hub. We have seen 2 and 3 times biogas output increases using our systems. The RNG market in North America is set to expand rapidly over the next 3 years, with 200 expected installations on dairy farms in our existing market alone. Plus, we are seeing expansion in other species as well. We are setting up to be the water technology choice in all of these installs. Right now, we are working with some of the largest companies in the world, the food companies looking to help them move the needle on their ESG. Our team is made up of scientists, engineers, and computer programmers, many who have worked together on our previous water commercialization. My co-founder and I have worked together for over 20 years. We definitely never thought of ourselves as manure experts until our recent commercialization. We need to feed 10 billion people by 2050 while not increasing the environmental impacts and greenhouse gases. And we are enabling that through our Waste to Worth platform. Our 2020 vision of protein production uses the power of data and digital technology to unlock value trapped in lagoons so we can go lagoon free. We are on track to recycle 1 billion gallons of manure this year, and we are looking for partners and raising a Series A round to help us grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Just about bang on time. And now, Mike Williamson. Mike has had a long relationship with the sea. Born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, he proudly served in the Royal Canadian Navy for over 30 years, culminating with 3 years as commander of Canada's West Coast Naval Base. In the 10 years since, he has been an entrepreneur, businessman, and leader in a number of companies encompassing energy, security, education, and the environment, and including, something near to my heart, working to end mercury use by artisanal gold miners in the developing world. His formal education includes a BSc, an MBA, and CSE and SSC. Mike, it's your show.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thanks, Grace, and thanks to the CSE for the opportunity to present today. And I'm proud to be speaking about Cascadia Seaweed, located in beautiful British Columbia. We've been on a relatively fast track of growth. We incorporated last June, but we are in a very fast-growing sector. It's pretty hard to look at the press and not see something about seaweed and its role in our society. We've been featured in Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, Time magazine, and this year we're doing 10 times expansion of our cultivation after a very successful first year. So what's the intent of Cascadia Seaweed? Why do we do what it is we do? Well, for climate action, growing seaweed and using it in products is great for the environment, provides human health and food security. It's a green sector. We work very closely with Indigenous and coastal First Nations. There is a lot of tech innovation, which is part of the reason why I'm here today. And of course, resiliency for coastal communities. We've been able to do all of this throughout the pandemic. What do you use seaweed for? Well, consumer packaged goods, foods. There's a lot of research going on in agri-feeds and the use of seaweed for methane reduction, which I'll talk about shortly. Biopackaging, plastics from seaweed. We like to call it oceans saving oceans. Pharmaceuticals, carbon offsets, and obviously a large amount of R&D with additional species. British Columbia is home to over 630 species of seaweed. But you have to be focused with that number of opportunities. You have to focus in on what really works. Of course, it's very topical interest. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and growing, cultivating, processing, and utilizing seaweed in a number of sectors addresses these sustainable development goals, which is of great interest to partners, consumers, companies we work with, and investors. So why seaweed? Why where we are? British Columbia is ideally located. We have pristine cold waters. The tanker ban reduces the amount of industrial activity, no pollutants, very close to major markets, both in Canada and down the I-5 corridor into California and all along the I-5 corridor. A favorable regulatory environment. British Columbia is home to about $1.3 billion annually in aquaculture. First Nations and coastal communities support it. It's positive for the environment. It's good, clean, green jobs, and it's year-round work. The infrastructure is there. There's a lot of processing plants and value-added processing. And then the 10 years in the water lots in which you grow the farms. I mentioned earlier Indigenous partnerships, a couple hundred First Nations groups in British Columbia. The coastal ones are used to working from the sea. There's an expression, when the tide is out, the table is set. So they have seen for millennia how seaweed and what the ocean provides can provide food and food security. Working with First Nations is a key for us, and it's vital to them as well, as I mentioned earlier, for economic development and stability, diversification. Our future plans continue to expand, as I mentioned, this year to 20 hectares or 20x or 10x over last year. 60 hectares, 180 hectares. We're currently working on consumer packaged goods in plant-based food and 50-50 burgers, seaweed, and meat. Reducing methane emissions with bovine feed, and I'll be talking about that a little bit more. I talked about the biopackaging, fully biodegradable, compostable, and then nutraceuticals and a number of other sectors. We're very collaborative. We work with a number of other seaweed manufacturers around the globe. And because the sector is large, there's opportunity to collaborate without competing. How do you grow seaweed? Well, you put a rope-like structure in the ocean, suspended about 3 meters under. the water surface, you seed it in December, and you let Mother Nature do its job, and you harvest it in April. There's a lot of technical innovation going on right now with farm displacement, deployment with seeding technology, better way to get seed on the line, better ways to harvest it, all to reduce unit costs, which of course is important in any industry. The nursery itself, where you create seed for seaweed, we had to develop that. Last year, we did 6 kilometers of seeded line. This year, it's 60 kilometers of seeded line. There was no industry to do it in BC. So we have a fully instrumented nursery. And again, we'll be expanding that further next year and learning as we go and working with some of the vendors and techs and folks in other related growth industries. So tech is in our verticals. Bovine methane emissions, there's an opportunity to reduce the methane emissions from cows by up to 90% by adding species of seaweed. We're looking at what cold water seaweed species can be used in order to do this. And then we'll be working with cattle farmers and dairy farmers to get this in to reduce methane to meet targets. And as well, it helps the cows uptake their feed, becomes more efficient. Research is ongoing right now with a number of universities and Ag Canada and the province of Alberta. Future opportunities, I mentioned bioplastics, pharmaceuticals. We're not looking at beauty and cosmetic products, but there's vegan collagen and other substances and products within seaweed that are helpful for that, and pet food and on and on. But the important thing is to be focused. However, the real important thing for us is our teams. There's a couple of quick shots of folks in the field. We've been blessed with a large number of folks inbound wanting to work with us. Last year, there was 3 of us. Today, there's 17 partners, employees, and an additional 2 contractors, highly educated, highly passionate about what it is they do. Final thoughts. I mentioned Seaweed performs a number of sustainable development goals. We are doing a lot of technical innovation. While it may sound a lot like agriculture, tech is very important. The picture on the left is our nursery, which hasn't been done like this in North America before. And we've brought a lot of lighting, ventilation, and heating technology into the nurseries to make it able to produce the kind of seeds that we want. We're doing further research into biomedical properties of seaweed, different species, and finally quantifying carbon capture and carbon credits that may be available. And I see Mark's smiling face, and I'm at 7 minutes and 5 seconds.
Thank you very much, Mike. Stay with us, and let's bring back Amanda and Karen. Today, I will be going fairly easy on our presenters. To hear tougher questioning of them, go to the replays of September 8th for Cascadia Seaweed, October 13th for Livestock Water Recycling, and October 20th for Rithmik Solutions. So let's start at the beginning and talk about the genesis for the idea. And Amanda, you've already talked a little bit about that yourself, so we can skip over you on this, I'm afraid, this time, but we'll definitely catch you more on questions 2 and 3. So let's go with Karen and then Mike. How did it start, and what were the next couple of steps which were taken?
Thanks for that. Like I mentioned in my presentation, we have worked together in a previous commercialization. My co-founder and I, and then a couple of engineers from our team, were working on hydrocarbon contaminated wastewater for many years. And because of our reputation in that industry and because of our public presence in treating industrial waste, we were approached by a farm here in Alberta asking if we could help them with their manure problem. And when we saw how manure was stored, we really saw a wastewater treatment market that was vastly underserviced. They just had no solutions available to them and had gallons and millions of gallons of waste to deal with every year. So it really looked like a great opportunity for a waste treatment technology. We initially started with some bench scale testing, and then we did 4 pilot studies in Canada on hog and dairy farms, and then started commercialization in New York State on a large dairy farm there.
My partner and co-founder Bill Collins did a study for Vancouver Island Economic Alliance looking at opportunities here. forest waste products, cultural tourism, green tech were all in the forefront. And then seaweed came up as a growing sector. And as I mentioned earlier, British Columbia has 630 native species. So I ran to my best research instrument, Google, and it said in the next 25 years, 10% of the global food mass should come from seaweed. And that's a pretty big number, as was mentioned earlier, to feed 10 billion people. And as well, the plant-based food movement took wind, and climate change was favorable. And seaweed looked at all of those aspects and said, yes, this is a great product to address it. We saw what was being done in North America and saw the ability to disrupt some of the current work being done there, and also, of course, to bring technology and AI. And we have a very strong management team with 125 years of experience to bring to the puzzle, and the rest is history or ongoing as we are on our path right now.
Good. Thank you, Mike and Karen. In regards to your technology push, and on this one, let's go Amanda, Mike, and Karen. Was it a very big leap at first, followed by refinements and to focus on business development? Or do you find in your case that the technology advancement effort is still almost as intense as at the beginning?
100%. It has always been intense, and it will always be intense for us because we're always getting access to more data, and the research is always advancing when it comes to AI and machine learning. So we're staying on top of it, and we're going to be improving, I think, until the end, whenever that is, hopefully a long ways away. The good news is that with our rapid analytics infrastructure, we can iterate pretty quickly. So we've built that in, and we're also partnered with the AI Research Institute here in Montreal. So we make sure that we're on top of everything that's coming out.
For us, it's very much an acceleration. The more we go, the faster it goes. This is an incredibly fast-paced industry. There's opportunity to take across some of the internet data analytics from land ag into aquaculture. We're interfaced with a variety of ocean tech folks, everything from satellite imagery to ocean cabling, to learn more about the growing environment in which we work. We instrument all our farms and look at things like salinity, turbidity, temperature, nutrients. Again, it comes back to focus. There is so much opportunity and so much breadth, depth, and width to be working on. We have to use technology to stay ahead of it, reach out to a number of sectors. For example, something as simple as grow lights in our nursery before they get transferred into the water. The cannabis industry has provided a lot of technology for coloring spectrums and frequency and brightness, and we're trying to bring some of that into the seaweed sector and continue to lower the cost per unit and take advantage of this.
I would say that my technology went slow to start and then has come to a full boil now. We started off trying to figure out how we could treat manure economically. Manure is a very difficult thing to treat. It's not like traditional wastewater. It's not like industrial waste. It's a very difficult treatment protocol to develop, and that took us some time at the very beginning. Once we had that patented technology ready, then we have been able to move so quickly through to treat other species, to treat other types of waste, and then to add a digital platform to that so that we could automate it, we could add a machine learning application to it. So now we're really rapidly improving the economics and the output of the system and the ROI for the farms. So really it was like a slow starting development around just water treatment. Water treatment is slow going, but then now we're rapidly into our version 3 of our technology and creating much better value.
Okay, good. We'll revert to that in a little while. The implications of technology expense continuing, your R&D expense continuing at high levels. So, but before we do that, let's talk about your geographic spread, the cost of opening up new markets, and how you are viewing expansion, i.e. intensification in existing markets or spreading out in some way geographically or to other verticals. And this time, let's go Mike, Karen, and Amanda.
Thanks again, Mark. Geographic spread it has several aspects with respect to seaweed cultivation. First of all is where does it come from? And there's three major centers globally. There's Asia, low-cost products, but more expensive in shipping. There's Europe, which has very high labor input cost and quite busy waters. And then there's Canada and to a smaller extent, Alaska. So from respect of where the goods come from, we think we have fantastic opportunities in British Columbia. To get to the market, we're going to start in Canada, very retail-focused stores. Online, of course, has blown up during the pandemic, and we're looking at direct-to-consumers that way. And then the I-5 corridor, our products are going to be shelf-stable, so we're not worried about cold or freezing for transportation. For the bovine methane emissions, targets will be Alberta, BC, California. So again, fairly easy to address markets. We're not looking tremendously overseas right now for products. It would be like taking coals to Newcastle. I don't think we'll be selling into Asia, but we do look to develop technologies that continue to enhance the amount of cultivation that we can get and some of our processing practices.
So as we look to grow geographically, we are definitely exploring the markets in a different way. I'm sorry, Amanda, was I supposed to go next after you? Okay. We're looking at, in Europe, we look at limitations of land and regulatory pressure. In the Middle East, we're looking at water demand. And in Asia, we're looking at disease mitigation. Livestock is held and grown the exact same way all around the world. There's differing structures that hold the animals. There's different species, but the manure is held in the exact same way. And it's a problem worldwide that we have, found out about and researched. And as we go through, we're using the same technology platform everywhere we go. And we are creating a different type of ROI in these different markets. And we're able to do this through a dealership model. We're building out through local dealers rather than direct to the B2B. We sell through distributors. We find that farms want to buy through local dealers and distributors more so than they want to buy overseas. Although we sold into Lebanon through a direct sale from a farm there contacting us on our website. So we have expanded that way, but we are building out through dealers. It's just a little bit more cost efficient and we think effective for having an industrial piece of equipment in a local market.
And in our case, geographical expansion is just a really natural thing that happens in our industry because most of the bigger mining companies have operations in several countries. So once you deliver results for them at one site, say in British Columbia, then for them to roll you out in Chile or Mexico, it's just kind of a natural next step for them. So that is already starting to happen in terms, like one of our pilots is in Zambia, for example. That said, channel partnerships are going to be really important for managing the procurement process. And that's one of the reasons we're so excited to be working with Oren. And as we start to accelerate our international commercialization, we are going to need to have some people on the ground to support our customers in Latin America and Australia and Africa, places like that, because people do want to interact with someone who speaks their language and who is close to their time zone. So that is going to be a thing. Very
good. So now let's go Amanda, Mike, and Karen on this. Have you determined the cost of entering new markets? And do you know how much it costs you to acquire a new customer?
So for us, because we're just starting to enter the markets now, like we're really just beginning to internationalize or even to commercialize, it's kind of happening at the same time. They're estimates at the moment, and we're going to see in the coming years what those numbers really look like. But we think it's going to be about $250,000 to open up a new region, and that's going to involve onboarding probably 4 or 5 customers.
Cost of entering new markets for us, for the food verticals, it's very standard, traditional grocery costs and shelf space and advertising. As I mentioned, we're looking at direct to consumer. We're going to do a very exciting launch in May of our product online. We use social media an awful lot to get to direct to consumers. And then for the other main verticals, bovine feed and bioplastics for the bovine, it's very focused, very direct. Some of it will be to cattlemen's and associations like that, but more importantly to some of the feed producers. So it's very much going to be a one-on-one personal relationship and outreach. And we are new as well, so some of the numbers need to be quantified, but it's not a major part of the cost to get into business because of the unique and not competitive nature of the business. That is to say, there's not a lot of people providing some of the solutions that we are.
And we have just actually undergone, as part of our Google Accelerator, a goal of reducing our cost of client acquisition by 40%. We're doing this through virtual tech. So we've developed some videos. We had traditionally been touring people that are interested internationally at our local sites. So when we sold into Lebanon, the farm group from Lebanon had to come fly to Wisconsin. We had to go meet them there and then do a tour on site. And then they had to do onboarding and training in our facility in Wisconsin. So you can imagine that can be expensive. But now we are doing all of this virtually. We've set up all of our app, our video, our virtual installation on Google Meet. And so we have reduced that we're almost at our 40% target. The cost of growing into new markets is just over $100,000 for onboarding our new dealers.
Very good. So each of you have a strong sense of what it'll cost you to grow. I'm going to skip over one question and move to your COGS, your cost of goods sold. At what point will it allow you to generate positive cash flow after admin and management expenses? And what else are you doing to drive profitability? And into this question, I want to go back to the fact that in several of your cases, R&D expenditure will continue at a high level, which means that as you grow, you won't be able to, you will continue to have that burden as well. So let's talk about those things. And Mike, let's start with you. And then Karen and Amanda.
Thanks again. Yeah, cost of goods sold, the biggest driver for us is farm infrastructure. A hectare of seaweed farm, these are facts you probably didn't know you needed to know. A hectare of seaweed farm costs about $20,000 to put in and lasts between 5 and 10 years. So we will be profitable or cash flow positive in about 1.5 to 2 years. But we intend to invest heavily in new structures to continue to enable us to grow. We have a final build-out target of about 2,500 hectares. And each year we're going to be putting money back in to grow the farms. And once the grow-out is done, of course, then you're heavily cash positive. But the biggest factor for us is the farm infrastructure. Other things like seeding is a very low input cost. We use contractors for the farm deployment and for harvesting. Food processing, feed processing are relatively low cost. For us, the cost of goods sold is directly relatable back to the aggressive growth pattern in the early years.
So we sell our equipment platform at a 50% gross margin. After that, we have recurring revenue of a consumable product that has a 25% markup on it. And then we have our data analytics platform that has the highest margin, but the lowest monthly revenue associated with it. As we try and build that up moving forward, as we get more farms onboarded onto our system. We are working to develop that as we just add more farms, more and more farms, increases our recurring revenue, which is a really interesting part for investors in our business. I'm actually just sitting here thinking about how I need to talk to Mike about that seaweed and how it's going to affect the manure so I can see the greenhouse gas impacts overall on between our system and his. So that's all I'm thinking about right now. For ongoing R&D expenses, we have that worked into our budgets, and we are currently cash flow positive.
So for us, our costs to date have actually been, our burn rate has been fairly low because we are a fairly small team and we've had access to a lot of really amazing free resources through our partnerships with organizations like NextAI and Mila. Our costs will increase in 2021 as we expand into additional regions. And then we'll be looking at profitability starting in 2022 as those companies that we're beginning to work with start to roll us out across additional sites. And that's really going to be the biggest driver of profitability for us.
Very good. Now we have a question. I love it when there's a technical question from the audience. Arian Shanazari has a question for Karen. What is your total dissolved ammonia and phosphorus extraction efficiency from the slurry? Can you comment on that at this point?
Such a great question. I love it. So in the first part of our system, our solids extraction removes 99% of the phosphorus. So all of that comes out in the first wave in the solids. We also remove 50% of the suspended nitrogen, so the organic nitrogen in the first wave. Then in the second wave, when we go to clean water, we have 92% of dissolved micronutrients at that point.
And that deals with this question, I assume, about ammonia. And we might.
So that's micronutrients in the second wave. So that's dissolved solids, all dissolved solids there.
Okay, very good. And now we'll go to our final question of this session. And that is grow to harvest cash flow, dividends for investors, IPO, or get bought out. And let's go with Karen, Amanda, and Mike.
Great. So we are looking to grow right now. We've got some pretty expansive goals set, and we are looking for corporate strategic buyouts at this point. We're not saying no to an IPO, but at this point, we've been speaking to some strategics, and I think that's the route for us going forward.
I'm next, right? So the most likely exit for Rithmik, I would say, would be an acquisition, because there are a number of very large companies, both on the technology and the equipment side, whose products would be augmented by what we have. And at least one company has already expressed interest in an eventual acquisition. That said, our goal is to have a massive positive impact, both on the environment and on people's ability to do their jobs better. And so that's our focus.
Yeah, and I can echo those sentiments. I was going to cynically say yes to cash flow, IPO, or be bought out. But the important thing is, first of all, it's the shareholders. We had a number of friends and family that came in and believed in the mission. So it's important that they get a good return for what they've invested. But similarly, with our coastal First Nations partners, they really want to see improvements to the ocean. As seaweed grows, it cleans up the ocean, and that has to continue. So the real answer will be twofold: whatever does best for our shareholders, and whatever continues the mission to enable us to grow and do better, and not only provide healthy, delicious foods, but also to help continue to clean up the environment. And I don't know what that will eventually look like yet.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you to our presenters for taking the time today. Amanda Truscott, Rithmik Solutions, Karen Schuett, Livestock Water Recycling, and Mike Williamson, Cascadia Seaweed. May you have continued success in expanding your excellent businesses. And thank you to our attendees for your time today. Go to the company websites and learn more about these companies. If you have a lead for them, do connect. Let's bring on Grace Patota of CSE for closing formal remarks.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you to everyone who joined our session today. And thank you to our presenters. When you have a moment, go to CSE TV on YouTube. I have provided a link in the chat, which should appear to the right corner of your screen. I've also added a link to registration for Health Tech Thursdays, which is the inaugural session will be this week. And this session, along with all of our other great content, the CSE publishes will be on CSE TV. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday.